He doesn't want you to look at me.
I didn't say that.
Look.
Say that. I got extra.
Yeah, thanks.
Is it 2 o'clock? It's 2 o'clock. I'm calling the meeting, Code Enforcement Board meeting for the City of Tarpon Springs, May 12th, 2016. If you would, please, Mr. Trask, could you go ahead and lead us in a invocation and a pledge of allegiance?
Our Father in heaven, we seek blessings on the tasks before us. Bless our efforts with clear insight, our deliberations with wisdom, our work with clarity and accuracy, and our decisions with impartiality. We gather to make decisions for our community. May we use only our best skills and judgment, keeping ourselves impartial and neutral as we consider the merits and pitfalls of each matter that is placed before us, and always act in accordance with what is in the best interest of the city of Tarpon Spring. This we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Could we have a roll call, please?
Chairman Bessie is absent and excused. Vice Chair Sobolewski.
Here.
Ms. Vacasie.
Here.
Mr. Kramer is absent. Ms. Archer.
Here.
Mr. DeMontis is absent. Mr. Rodriguez-Charrier.
Here.
Mr. Bergman.
Here.
And Ms. Dabbs.
Here.
Hearing procedures. It is the intention of this board to promote, protect, and improve the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Tarpon Springs by providing an equitable, effective, and inexpensive method of enforcing various codes within the city of Tarpon Springs. Any aggrieved party may appeal a final administrative order of this board to the circuit court. Such appeal shall be filed within 30 days of the execution of the order to be appealed. Florida Statute 286.0105 requires any party appealing a decision of this board to have a record of the proceedings to support such an appeal. The board's procedure is, with each case on its agenda, is as follows. First, the city presents its witnesses and exhibits, after which the violator is able to ask the city's witnesses any specific questions regarding their testimony. Secondly, the violator is allowed to make a presentation and present any evidence or documents. Then the city can question the violator's witnesses. After both rounds of testimony, both on the part of the city and on the part of the violator, Each party is asked to give a closing statement, first by the city and then by the violator. After these three steps are taken, this board then closes the public hearing portion of the case to discuss and take appropriate actions. Before we begin the public hearing, we will have all potential witnesses to stand up and be sworn in by the secretary of the board. Please also turn off all cell phones.
And raise your right hands. Do you swear affirm the testimony you give today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Okay, Officer Trask, who is the investigator for, Officer Gaston, who is our investigator for the code enforcement, is going to be running about 10 minutes late, so we're going to alter a little bit and go to the last case, which is the reduction of fine, case number 02-000-1013, 472 Pent Street. Is there anybody here representing? Okay. If you would, please, I need you to come up, sit at the table, talk into the microphone, give us your name and address, please.
My name is Jacqueline Zier. I live at 472 Pent Street.
Okay.
I'm Herb Elliott, 1111 Riverside Drive, an attorney here in Tarpon Springs representing the applicants. And I apologize for my appearance, but I just had an operation, so I'm a little groggy and I'm not fully dressed, but I'll do the best I can.
You have your pants on, right?
That's right. That's all that counts. And I assume you both signed in and were sworn in. Okay.
Okay, remember now, this is a petition for reduction of fine. There's no testimony to be taken. You're to be making your determination based solely upon the written petition.
Right.
Do we need a motion before we can discuss?
No.
Okay.
We can discuss. Is there any discussion as far as the board is concerned in reference to the reduction of fine for said property?
How much is the total fine?
$674,700. $674,700.
$400, did you say? All right.
674
$674,700.
700. Okay. Any discussion? 674,070
Let me see.
So long, 674,700. That's what it is.
Okay, so, all right. 6, 7. Okay. Thanks. God. Okay.
Is there any questions as far as the board or discussion that needs to be talked about? Annie?
I'm trying to determine when the original
The original fine,
issue, and has it gone on consistently without any,
original date was September the 3rd of 2003.
and there's been no appeal in between then and now for the amount
Well-
to get to this?
They just came into compliance in February,
February,
so it's been 14 years.
12 years. Well, yeah. 12 years, 5 months from what my calculations are.
Okay. And so 10% of this amount would be 6,747.
Yes.
No, that would be
Okay.
$67,470.
Okay.
That's 10%. 1%
Would be.
Oh,
right.
okay,
6,000.
okay. I left my brain home, so it'd be 67,000.
$7,470.
Okay. 700.
If there's no discussion, it would be appropriate to make a motion, then you have further discussion on the motion if you want to do that.
Is there any
Mr.
more
Chairman.
discussion?
Have they lived there the whole time?
You just have what's in front of you, the,
And that's the question.
I'm under the impression of reading their appeal that yes, they have lived there the whole time.
I'll make a motion, and we can go ahead and talk some.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. I move that the fine of $674,000, am I doing it right?
Yes.
Yeah.
700.
$700 in the case of citation number 0200001013, be reduced to $67,770. This reduction will occur upon payment of the stated reduced amount if paid within 60 working days of this order. Failure to pay the reduced fine will result in the original amount of $674,700.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Why haven't they been able to, clean this up before now?
in this letter here.
Did you, there is a letter, Becky,
6 to 15 years,
attached, by Mr. Elliott.
or something? I don't understand.
We're able to answer any questions. If you care to ask them, under your rules, apparently we can't be heard. But if you care to ask us, I believe we can answer those questions.
Does she have Mr. Elliott's letter?
Yes, I
Yes.
do,
Oh,
but
okay.
I didn't know why, I don't know if I'm allowed to ask this or not, but I just was wondering why there hasn't been an attempt to try to clean it up before now. I know he's been ill, but could have hired somebody.
Well, I had, a problem with the reduction until I found out about the amount, because I didn't wanna go down to 10%, but, if we go down to 10%, it's still a pretty hefty fine, and I agree that it needs to be a hefty fine because it went on for 12 years. And so that's why I made the motion that I did. And you're right, isn't there anybody else that could have done this? Because the neighbors have had to look at that for 12 years.
Any other discussions or questions? Comments? Could we have a vote, please?
Ms. Debs?
No.
Mr. Bergman?
Yeah.
Mr. Charrier?
Yes.
Ms. Archer?
Yes,
Ms. Vacasie?
Yes.
Vice Chair Sobieski?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Motion carried.
Motion carried, yes. No. Would somebody on the board like to make a motion for affidavits of compliance, please, while we're waiting for Officer or Officer Gasson? Sheesh. I'm looking at you and,
I got that.
yes, I'm sorry.
He looks so confident.
Yes. Would anybody make a motion off of the affidavits of compliance?
All right. I move to accept the affidavits of compliance. Do I have that?
Yeah, you need to,
Yeah.
you just read down the,
The numbers, yeah.
Oh, God.
this is on the third page of your agenda package.
Yes.
Case number 11-800-00268. Case number 11-800-00940. Case number 14 800-757, and case number 16, 800-00055.
All in favor?
We need a second. We need a
Oh,
second.
I need a second, I'm sorry, second? Got a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Approved? I see that our code enforcement inspector is here, so we can proceed then with new business, case number 1, if you are ready, sir.
I'm ready.
Okay. Sir, you were not sworn in. Do you mind if we,
Swear from the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
and you have been sworn in and you've signed the law? Okay, thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Are we doing case number 16-800-000030, 400 Roosevelt Boulevard?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Property owner is Tagarelli Brothers Construction Company Incorporated. Originally, in February of this year, I received a complaint about a large quantity of construction equipment and other equipment being stored on the property. Property being overgrown, trash and debris on the property. We had another complaint, but that one was taken care of prior to this. Might have been on your documentation regarding a zoning issue, but that's been taken care of, so that's no longer in question. We sent a courtesy letter on February 17th, and then a notice of violation was issued on March 14th for the violations of 8-40 and 57.00 for outside storage. Notice of hearing was mailed first class, and certified return receipt requested to listed property owners determined by the Pinellas County Tax Collector or the property appraiser. We did receive the return receipt. I haven't had any contact. I think we exchanged either one voicemail or one email, but it never touched base and never actually got to talk to Mr. Tagarelli. I finally did have a conversation for probably 5 minutes with his attorney, who I believe is present. And we did discuss a couple of things. Basically what it boiled down to, I posted the property on April 29th, and I conducted a reinspection a couple of days ago. I do have some photographs, and basically what it boils down to is there's some construction equipment on the property, a dump truck, some trailers, things like that, and then the property just needs to be basically mowed in that area where those vehicles are. So the brief discussion we had with the attorney was I was hoping that the equipment would have been moved out. I didn't have an opportunity to check it again today, and hopefully you didn't email me and I missed that, so.
Any objections? Okay, Mr. Chairman, you should just receive
Yes.
those into evidence without objection.
Yes. Once they come around, if you would, please put them into evidence. While we're looking at the pictures, do you have any questions to the city's code enforcement inspector?
Yes, my name is Mary Coburn. I'm an attorney here in Tarpon Springs, 15 East Orange Street. And I represent Mr. Tagarelli, who's Vice President of Tagarelli Brothers, the property owner, who's present for you. Officer Gaskin, you cited Mr. Tagarelli's company based on the assumption that outdoor storage was not permitted. Is that correct?
Yes, and the violation of the duty of maintenance of private property.
Okay. When we spoke, we discussed the fact that there was an ordinance that was passed on this property that you may not have had a copy of. Is that correct?
Not necessarily an ordinance. Part of it is because of where it's zoned, the commercial zoning area. You and I talked about the possibility of being a variance, and that was one of the things I tried to get a hold. I think I talked to Mike's cousin, who owns the property just north of that, was trying to get in touch about variances and to those effects to see if they were allowed, had been given a variance to keep that equipment on that property. Based on the way zoning has it zoned as that WD1, that waterfront businesses have, basically waterfront warehouse area. Reading through that particular ordinance and that zoning restriction doesn't allow construction equipment. I guess if he had fishing equipment, that would be different, crab traps and the such, but based on the way it's zoned, the construction equipment can't be there. Nobody denies that it's commercial property, it's the type of commercial property that doesn't allow the outside storage under 5,700. So that's what my condition was. And as I stated to you on the phone, if the equipment would have been moved out prior to today, we could have gone down the road of, I would have closed the case out, we wouldn't be aboard. We could have figured out if it could be fenced in, or if there was an existing variance, either through a private attorney or even through the city clerk's office.
Right.
And we wouldn't be at this
Right.
point.
Yeah, right, I understand that.
Okay.
First, let me address the issue of the cleanup. Can you refer to your photographs and show us where the grass needs to be mowed?
We can just hand them back.
If I remember correctly, where the dump truck is
Just need
parked.
to hand them back.
Thank you. Basically, it is just.
Oh, he's got
It's
another copy.
it's a little bit of area underneath where the dump truck and this equipment is to the eastern edge of his property. And I think what you're gonna see is once that equipment is all moved out of there, there's grass growing up in between the trailers and things. That's that, and cleaning up the trash and any debris that's left once the equipment is moved.
Okay, but
That's what I'm talking about under 840.
okay. You haven't been back to see the property this week?
Yes, I went on the 11th, day before yesterday.
Okay.
Actually, yeah, I was out there, and that's why I was waiting on a call from you guys. I checked it at approximately, probably about 9 o'clock in the morning. I had to, and then I was still waiting on a call from you to see if I would check it again today. And
Right.
since I didn't hear from you, I didn't check it again today.
I left him voicemail, but that wasn't the
Oh,
issue.
you did? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. The point is that in terms of the cleanup, it's been improved since when you first went out there. Don't you agree? Because he did a lot of work on it over the weekend.
There was some equipment that was moved out of there, yes. I remember, I think there was a couple of dump trucks and things like that, but there was still a couple of trailers, the dump truck, the little backhoe that I have a picture of, or the front end loader, the Bobcat. those kind of things.
But it's improved in terms of the overall neatness, just on that issue, since you first went out there, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And as far as you know, the zoning doesn't exist based on what you had when you cited him, correct? For outdoor storage.
No, this falls under it because that 5,700 is for commercial properties in the outside storage. And what we discussed is if it could be contained behind a fence at that property, and that was something that we need to see if there maybe was existence of the variance, or if planning and zoning had a different interpretation. But based on the way 5,700 reads, you can't store equipment outside.
Okay.
That's simply what it boils down.
Okay, but you are unaware of the ordinance that was passed in 2008 that converted this from commercial fishing for the waterfront development area to commercial general. Is that correct? Because there is an
Well,
ordinance that was passed in 2008.
No, and looking at where the parcel's zoned according to the City of Tarpon Springs parcel map and zoning map, it's still WDAI, I believe, which is the waterfront.
But the future land use is commercial general.
I can't.
You can't speak to that.
I can't
And
speak
you
to
aren't
that.
unaware.
Yeah.
Okay, and you're also unaware that the future land use element prepared by the city in 2010, when you have general commercial, allows for outdoor storage. Are you unaware of that as well?
I'm not, because to the best of my knowledge, it's not general commercial, it's WDAI under,
Okay. So-
that's where I believe it is zoned currently, and unless somebody, and that's part of the discussion. If we have it
Right,
zoned in a different
right,
place, we
right.
probably have a whole different conversation.
Right, and I contacted the zoning department, Kim, others, and she was supposed to let y'all know whether or not she was gonna be able to render an opinion today, because, it's somewhat short notice from the early
Right.
part of the week. But in the meantime, the city clerk did produce for me
Mary,
yes.
this is
Oh,
cross-examination.
I'm sorry.
If you want to make that
Yeah, we'll
argument,
make-
you can
we'll
do that
make that
later.
argument later.
Okay. Any other
Okay.
questions for Officer Gasson?
Just, I'd like to show him this ordinance and see if he was aware of it before.
Absolutely, certainly.
I don't have any argument with it. It appears that it was changed to that. I don't know what effect it has on this particular case without taking the time to change through all of that at this moment in time.
Okay, well, so in other words, if I may have the clerk authenticate what Mr. Gasson just read, it was produced by the clerk's office. It's a copy of an ordinance, and I'd like to submit it into evidence if anybody, if that's.
We would do that in your case in chief
Okay.
again, Mary. So,
Okay. All right, the other thing I'd like Officer Gaskin to take a look at is the future land use element from the City of Tarpon Springs Planning and Zoning Department, particularly page 47 and 48 that discusses outdoor storage, and see if he was aware of this.
You said page 47? Do you have a question about it, or?
No, in your reading of that, it permits outdoor storage for general.
With
commercial.
condition.
Right.
It states, what it states is intensive commercial uses may be permitted provided they are reviewed for land use compatibility and outdoor storage is restricted or opaquely screened. Screening shall include landscaping techniques. So even if this applies, that's what we talked about, it being behind a fence.
But you didn't charge him with failing to screen, correct?
No, but also at the time, like I said, the parcel still appears, according to the city's parcel map,
Right.
to be a different type of property.
Right.
But with that being said, 5,700 is for commercial property.
Right.
So either way, we're still talking about commercial property.
Right.
So.
But nonetheless, he wasn't charged with failing to screen. You were unaware, so
Correct,
we
yes.
understand that. You were unaware, but he's not charged with that. He's charged with storing property, even though he's permitted to store it under the code, correct?
Well, under which code? 5,700 or under
general-
the new one?
Under the new one that
Which
it's zoned for.
he's allowed to store it with conditions, which aren't met.
Right. Well, but you didn't charge him with that,
That's
correct? Okay. So before the board today is the issue of whether or not he has the right to store his equipment on that property, and based on the reading of the ordinance that we've provided you from the city and the future land use element, he is permitted to store property.
I don't know how the future land use element affects code enforcement, because this isn't a specific ordinance number that I enforce. This is a classification of zoning. So under the zoning, and I didn't charge him with, we took away the zoning aspect.
Right.
We went under 5,700, which is outdoor storage.
Right.
That's regardless of whatever it's zoned. It's zone commercial, so it's kind of an umbrella type aspect is what 5,700 is. Even what you presented for the future land use, which I don't enforce necessarily, kind of a moot point, because it's still 6 one way, half a dozen the other. They're both stored outside,
Correct.
and they're both commercial property.
Right.
In either context.
Right.
So
But
that's
it
my
permit-
interpretation of this regardless.
Well, this, ultimately, I think we have help from the city.
Kim is here,
Yeah. So she'll be able to clarify all this.
and she hopefully can help us with this.
Yeah, hopefully.
And I don't know if,
Those are my main points. Thank you.
okay, does the city have any other witnesses that you want to call?
I would just call Kim.
All right, so you haven't been sworn in. Since the city clerk is away from the desk, I'm going to go ahead and swear you in. If you could stand up, raise your right hand, and be sworn under oath. You swear that the testimony you're about to give is going to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Okay, if you could step up here and tell us who you are, and maybe you could clarify.
I'm Kimberly Others from Planning and Zoning.
Did you want to clarify the particular zoning on this property? The property that we're talking about today is 400 Roosevelt Boulevard. The question is whether or not it's zoned WD1 or commercial general. And then with that, how does that relate to section 57.00 outdoor storage?
I've actually had to do some research regarding this property?
You said you have to do some research?
Yes, so I have not been able to answer the exact zoning yet.
Okay. If you want to make your motion to continue on behalf of the city, the answer is yes, this board can consider, but we need to hear also if there's any objection to the continuance till next month. So you're making that motion?
Yes, sir, I'd like to make that motion.
Okay. Ms. Coburn, do you have any objection to continuing until next month?
Well, before I give you an answer, I'm gonna make this statement. The city should know what their laws are when they charge somebody with something, because at that point that they charge somebody, the clock is ticking for compliance. So, while I don't like being unreasonable, and obviously we want to get to the bottom of it, my client has been very compliant, in fact, going to the city and having an ordinance drafted in 2008 and approved by the city commission to allow him to store this equipment on there. So, you know, now he's before the board after having gone to all that trouble. So, I object to continuing it.
Okay, we're going to stop you hang on, just right there. Okay, so Mr. Chairman, you've got a motion to continue and you've got an objection to the continuance. And this is not something you put to a vote. This is a decision that you have to make on your own as to whether or not that you want to continue it. If you don't, then we'll proceed with the case. That is your decision based upon what you've heard so far.
I am going to agree with the plaintiff and say that we need to continue with the case because it's apparent we didn't do our homework. Or not you, officer, but there's a breakdown if this law was passed in 2012 or what?
2008, the ordinance.
Or whatever, and it's 16. We need to do a little house cleaning, I feel, and get our people up to date before things are brought up to the board. So my ruling is to go with the plaintiff.
Okay, well, the city is actually the prosecuting, so they would be considered the plaintiff. Or you're saying you want to move forward with the hearing based upon, in other words, you're going to deny the motion for continuance?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so then you can decide how you want to proceed.
Well, at this point, I still believe that 5,700 for outdoor storage, regardless, is still in effect because it is commercial property. Both sides, our side, the ordinance aside, either general commercial, this ordinance still affects that. The fact that the future land use doesn't necessarily play into that. The board saw the pictures, saw the equipment stored outside on a commercial property, regardless of it being behind a screened in, which the future land use says it should be. My contention is, as I cited under 5,700, which just states you can't store equipment outside on a commercial property.
Okay.
So based on that, that's my position, or the city's position.
Okay, thank you. At this time, would you like to make a presentation or a statement, please?
Yes, we would. I'll begin with a statement. Mr. Tagarelli bought this property in 2000. Tagarelli Brothers Construction bought the property for the purpose of storing their construction equipment. The zoning changed at a certain point during the ownership of the property, but that caused him to come before the city commission, and he had an ordinance moved to have the change of the future land use. They kept it at WD1 because there was an apartment on there, and the WD1 permitted the duplex apartment there. Then they also obviously wanted to accommodate his ability to store his commercial equipment. So they changed it from commercial fishing storage to general commercial. And what I'm going to do, I believe we previously submitted it. At this point, I'd like to submit the future land use element into evidence. And I apologize, I only have a few copies, but I'll pass them out to you. Where in this, the city of Tarpon Springs delineates that if you are general commercial, you're allowed outdoor storage. It does have restrictions, but that's not what Mr. Tagarelli is here for today. He's here for you, in front of you today, because he's storing equipment on this land. And we contend that the future use, which was changed in 2008 in that ordinance, which has been authenticated by the city clerk, allows him to store equipment on that property. So the future land use, based on the work that he did, he's not a non-compliant person in front of you. In 2008, he went to the trouble to actually have the zoning changed to go to this commercial general. So he's here in front of y'all today and feels like he's in compliance based on what he's been charged with. So I'd like the future land use element submitted into evidence, and also the ordinance that was passed by the city of Tarpon Springs. Also, there are minutes, that the BOC minutes, that I will also submit into evidence, and I'll be happy to read a portion of it to you. It was unanimously passed to allow from commercial general fishing to commercial general, providing for findings and providing the effective date, and it was the city commission unanimously passed it to allow for this use, and they found that it was a use that was in compliance with the area at the time. So we have that. We have the ordinance that was signed that allowed him to do that, and also the future land use element. So I'd ask that we submit all that into evidence at this time.
So we only need one copy, Mary.
Okay, so
And if you could give it to the city clerk, Michelle, and then she'll receive it. And Mr. Chairman, you want it received into evidence, correct?
Yes, I do. I want that put into evidence, please.
And then what we'll do is we'll pass it down so everybody can take a look at it.
all right. At this point also, I would like to have Mr. Tagarelli speak to you briefly. He I'll ask him a few questions. Introduce yourself.
Mike Tagarelli, 601 Lower Lane, Tarpon Springs.
Mr. Tagarelli, have you maintained your property recently?
We have.
What steps did you take to maintain the property?
Well, as these pictures are showing, we have cleaned it up. It wasn't looking as good as these pictures are showing. But I would like to make a statement. Officer, is it Gaskin?
Gaskin.
Gap. You made a comment about the weeds growing up inside the dump truck, and if you look at this picture here for the board, there's no weeds growing up. So there's no grass. I mean, there's not very little grass there. The grass is pretty well short. So just let the board know that was an incorrect comment.
Okay. In terms of your compliance, you're prepared to comply with the city. You haven't done anything. You feel like you have through having brought this before the city commission in the past?
Correct. I feel we're in compliance.
And the point of when you brought it before the city commission, what was the main purpose that you did that?
To store our construction equipment. That's the reason why we bought the building.
And the property?
And the property.
Okay. And you have never been cited since?
Never.
And how long? And you've owned the property since 2000?
2000.
That's all we have.
Okay. Do you have any questions?
I do.
Okay.
Sir, did you submit a site plan for this property when you submitted this ordinance? When you worked on this ordinance, did you submit a site plan?
Did we submit a site plan in 2008?
Correct.
I'm sure we did.
Okay.
Well,
do you have that with you?
We submitted whatever the city requested
Okay,
at that
do you have
time.
that with you?
I do not have it with me.
Okay. Are you aware what Ordinance 5700 states in the very first sentence, the very first couple of sentences?
I am not.
Can I read it to you?
That's fine.
Basically, 5700 outdoor storage. No outdoor storage, sales, service, or display of merchandise, equipment, or materials shall be permitted except as shown on an approved site plan and provided below, which there's a bunch of subsections, and I'm not going to get into those because they're not pertinent. My condition was the equipment. So you don't have a site plan for what this ordinance states you have to have. Is that correct?
Mr. Elliott was here.
Hold on a second. Let him. He needs to answer the question, Mary.
I'm going to defer to my attorney.
Okay.
Oh, hold on a second now. You can't defer to your attorney to answer your questions. You're under oath, sir. You've been asked under cross-examination a question. You need to respond.
Okay. Ask the question again, please.
Do you have in your possession a site plan for that property?
I do, but not right here.
Okay. An approved site plan showing that construction equipment could be stored on there approved
Well,
by the city.
listen, we never had to submit a site plan showing construction equipment sitting there. That was never a requirement, even in 2008. In 2008, all you would have to do, going through city issues, is submit a site plan of the property. I do not have to detail on the site plan a dump truck sitting in the northeast corner, a cone sitting in the southeast corner. That's never been a requirement that I am aware of.
Okay, do you recall on your site plan if you submitted that you had an area designated for storage of equipment?
Again, that was in 2008. Don't have it in front of me.
Okay, and you're aware this ordinance was passed in 1990 and amended in 1993. It was passed 10/15 of 1993. So that was many years prior to your ordinance, correct?
Don't know.
Well, you had your ordinance in 2008, is that correct? You bought the property in 2000, correct?
2008 is when we came
So
to the
this
city.
ordinance states here it was passed in October of 1993. Okay. And you don't have a site plan as the ordinance required?
I'm not saying that.
You just
I'm
don't have
saying
it
I
with
do
you.
not have it here present.
Okay, that's perfectly fine. I understand. I have no further questions.
Mary, do you have any other witnesses or any rebuttal?
Only that, in order to pass an ordinance with in front of the Board of Commissioners, you have to meet all the requirements, including any site plan issues. The zoning department makes you, before you can even get on the agenda. So, if there was a requirement back in 2008 for that, he met it, because you have the ordinance in front of you that was passed, and, you know, it wouldn't be there. So, that's the only rebuttal I have on that issue. And what I'm asking you all to do today is to look at what's in front of you. In front of you is a citizen who bought property for a specific purpose, went to the trouble to get it rezoned, at least the future land use, the element that is in front of you, and is also relates to the issue of outdoor storage. He went to the trouble to get it done so that he could be in compliance, and now he's being charged with putting the equipment on the property, which was addressed in 2008. He was not being charged with anything else, just the fact that the storage is there, and obviously the cleanup, which Mr. Taglia's addressed. So I'm asking you to dismiss the charges today, because they're not. He's in compliance based on the ordinances that have been passed on his behalf.
Did you want to submit into evidence that future land use element documentation? Even though you showed it to Officer Gass and he's got it in his hands, were you submitting that into evidence, or did you want the board to take judicial knowledge of it or notice of it?
I'd like them to. I think I gave it to.
It's included in the package.
Yes, it's
Oh, okay, I
included.
didn't
The
see it
future
come
land
back.
use element, it's
I'm
included.
reading it.
Okay, so it has already been received into evidence then? Okay. All right, so you have no additional witnesses, you've done your closing argument, anything else, Mr. Gass, or Officer
Closing
Gass?
arguments or closing statements?
It's very simple. The outdoor storage ordinance, I don't contest any of the changes to any of the ordinances, future land use and whatnot. 5700 is fairly clear. The fact that at the time he got it approved does not necessarily negate the ability to change something from that point in time. I didn't inspect the property in 2000. I wasn't part of the city ordinance passing. I received a complaint under 5700 for outdoor storage. As I read earlier, one of their subsections clearly states any outdoor storage area is approved by site plan and is completely enclosed by opaque screening, no less than 6 feet in height, consisting of a fence and appropriate landscaping. I contend from the city's part, from the pictures, the equipment is not behind an opaque fence. It is on commercial property, and it's outside. Basically, the elements of the ordinance state it's outside, it's equipment. There's no site plan presented before the board showing that it's allowed to be there. With that even being said, 5700 says it needs to be behind opaque screening. So all those elements of it, regardless of the type of zoning it is, regardless of it being WD1 or general commercial or future land use, 5700 states it's equipment, it's outside, it's not behind a screened-in fence. That's the city's position. As far as 40.00 goes, once the equipment is gone, at that point in time, I'd love to do a reinspection and see if the property is in much better shape than it was when I initially inspected it back in February. I'm not arguing that. And I have no problem with closing that aspect of the case out once the equipment is moved and I can properly inspect it. So as I stated, that's the city's position under 5700 in the ordinance in question.
Okay,
And I have
thank
no
you,
further-
sir. Do you have a closing statement?
She already made
Oh,
hers.
She already made?
Yeah, she already made it. That's
Oh.
what we started with her backwards, so.
Oh, okay.
She's already made it. So,
All right, at this point in time, then I'm going,
I'm sorry, Mr. Tagarelli wanted to make one statement. Is it too late? Can we
I could do
reopen
that.
to permit
Make a statement.
one statement?
no.
yeah, that's up to you, Mr. Chairman. You decide.
Okay, one more statement, just one.
Okay.
Time's up. Oh,
Okay.
No, go ahead.
I mean, I would just like to say, I feel like I'm here compliant, and the officer's asking me to move my equipment for another inspection. I mean, I'm in business. Yeah, that was your comment earlier. I'm in business. I've been in Tarpon 4 generations. I've done a lot for the city, in the city, and you're gonna ask me to move my equipment and cost me a financial burden with time and money to go store it somewhere which I have nowhere to go with right now, to make another inspection, I think is wrong. Your comment, Mr. Vice Chairman, about the city doing their homework before they bring a citizen in front of your board and cost me money with an attorney, I think is wrong. So those are my comments. Thank you.
All right, now at this point in time, then I'm going to close the public portion of this hearing and opening it up to the board. Do we have any discussions, comments, concerns, et cetera?
I'm not scared to say I'm a little confused and where we're at right now with the two things. The one thing that stands out above everything else to me is the lack of a fence. And when that was originally demanded by the city for that to be enacted. If it was back in 2008, then we really have, that's what we're referring to right now, okay? Not your equipment. It should be fenced in. And I'd be willing to make a motion, and I understand the position of the resident when they state that this should have been resolved a while ago, but here we are now, okay? So I think we have to act on the information we have in front of us.
Any other comments, statements?
I have a question for Officer Gaston.
Yes?
The public hearing is closed. We
Yes.
can't be rocking back and forth, so unless you want to open it back up, then we have to open it up to cross-examination again. Do you want to do that?
No, but I don't think that we were given an opportunity to ask questions earlier, but, then let me just do some discussing here. I thought that I had understood that there was a duplex or something.
There was a what?
In a duplex or home, some kind of, residential stuff near that site. And if so, then I wouldn't wanna look at that, and I'm just not so sure. That piece of paper that I just passed down, the yellow highlighter said opaquely screened. And so this is a matter of putting up a fence so people don't have to look at that. Is that oh, I can't ask that. Okay, never mind. I just think that, the city has proven a case for what we have in front of us.
Any other comments, questions, concerns? Could I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion. I move based on the testimony, evidence, facts presented by law that at the time of the alleged violations, sections 840 and 57.00 of the Code Ordinance of the City of Tarpon Springs was enforced, and the respondent has until the 2nd of June, the 1st of June, 2016 to come into compliance with the code sections, or a fine of $25 per day shall be imposed for each day thereafter that the respondent remains in violation of the said code.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Is there any discussion?
Yeah. I'm afraid that if Mr. Tagarelli were to fence this, he would need more than 2 or 3 weeks. He'd need permit. So I agree with your motion, but I'm just concerned that he might need a couple extra weeks.
I thought of that, but this has been around since 2008, where I'm sure a fence was mentioned at that point, and because I can't see where our city commissioners would not have at least talked about it. And here we are, the 3rd month into this. When a notice was sent to the resident, there was no response at that point. Now we're 3 months into it.
Okay, thanks.
Any other discussion? Could I have a vote, please?
Ms. Dabbs?
Yes.
Mr. Bergman?
No.
Mr. Charrier?
Yes.
Ms. Archer?
Yes.
Ms. McCasey?
Yes.
Vice Chair Spilesky?
No.
Guess the motion
Carried
carried.
4-2.
Motion carried.
If I might point out, he was not charged with failing to fence his property. So you have, you're seeking to enforce something that wasn't before you. So if we took an appeal, not sure you'd do what you're trying to accomplish. You have to understand he was not charged with not fencing his property.
Thanks, Mary. Okay, we're gonna need to move on to the next case.
I have one further thing. What perimeter are you asking him to fence?
You can talk with the code enforcement officer after. Hang on just a second. We're not gonna do that at every case. So you can talk to Ms. Coburn afterwards, advise her client as to exactly what you think it needs to bring it into compliance. And if they don't do it by the next, whenever that time frame is that they can come in and argue that they're in compliance or you non-compliance or whatever. So, Mary, if you could please just call them and talk to them afterwards. You guys can get it figured out and the board doesn't need to be involved.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving right along. Case number 2, case 16-800-00063, 310 Hibiscus Street. Is there anybody in the audience for this case? Officer, if you would, please.
Yes, sir. Case 16-800-0063, as you stated, the address is 310 Hibiscus Street. The property owner is listed as Sophia George, the Living Trust. February 25th of this year, I got a complaint about the lot being overgrown. It's a vacant lot. There was a house on it, burned down a few years ago. The fence on the east side is in poor condition, needs to be removed, repaired, or replaced. And then there is an old metal shed in poor condition, which needs to be removed. That shed has since been removed, so it's kind of a moot point right now. Issued a courtesy letter on February 26th, and on March 14th, a notice of violation was issued. On April 5th of this year, issued a notice of hearing, mailed first class and return receipt requested, mailed to the property owner of record as determined by Pinellas County tax collector or the property appraiser. I did not get a return receipt. All notices returned to the sender. Since there's no structure on the property, that was the last address we had, so they were returned to us. Did obtain contact from Tina George, who's the daughter. Unknown the legality of her in the living trust, but she's the daughter of the original property owner who lived in the house prior. Talked to her briefly on the phone a couple of times, explained to her what the situation was, what needed to be done. On April 29th, the property was posted, and I conducted a reinspection on the 11th, and I have a couple of pictures to show you. As I stated, the shed's no longer there. The property had been mostly cleaned up, probably about 90%. It's still a bit overgrown. As you can see in the pictures, there's still some trash and debris on the property, and part of the fence is still broken. The only thing, unfortunately, the picture kind of can't show you because the one picture that shows the fence, and once it passes down, that fence is actually leaning probably about 2 feet off at the top. It's just not very representative in the photograph. My photography skills aren't that great. So I will pass these out. And so basically, I cited her for duty maintenance of private property due to the overgrowth, the trash, the nuisance prohibitions under 852, which define 840, and then fences, walls, and hedges needing to maintain, repair, or replace your fences up to standard code. I have nothing further.
Any questions of the officer as far as the board is concerned, after they get a chance to look at the pictures?
Property is vacant, but, all right, do you know where the daughter lived?
She had an address somewhere in town, I believe, over, for some reason I want to say Pent Street, but Pent might be stuck in my head.
But she's local.
She's local.
Okay.
Yes, she is local. And we did talk to her on the phone. It was an interesting twist. One of our other police officers just had a dealing with her a couple of days before. I was able to get a hold of her, explain to her what was going on. She was all in for a little bit, and then and then we're left with what we're left. Like I said, she got about 90% done, and then that was it.
Is that a
Other
backyard picture?
houses,
I don't know if you know where Hibiscus is. This house, the property is directly behind the Greek Community Center off of Pinellas Avenue. It's basically, Hibiscus is the street that runs on the east side, and it was one of the smaller, older, turn of the century, 1930s houses or whatever, burned down. It's a pretty long lot, I wanna say about 110 feet. What you're seeing is probably 3/4 of the way down is where that fence is, and the trash is pretty far back into the lot. And since it was vacant, I walked out on there.
Could you please receive those in evidence, please? Is there any other questions of Officer Gasson? Do I have a motion? Okay.
okay. I move based on testimony, evidence, facts presented in law that at the time of the alleged violations, sections 8-40, 8-52, 36.03 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Tarpon Springs were in force. The respondent has until the 15th day of June to come into compliance, June 2016, to come into compliance with the section code, into compliance with the code sections, or a fine of $25 per day shall be imposed for each day thereafter the respondent remains in violation of said code section.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Could I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Debs?
Yes.
Mr. Bergman?
Yeah.
Jerry A?
Yes.
Ms. Archer?
Yes.
Ms. Vacasie?
Yes.
And Vice Chair Sobleski?
Yes. Okay. Case number 16-8000065, 505 Mears Boulevard. Is there anyone in the audience? If you would, please, sir, step forward.
Afternoon.
Would state your name and address, please?
My name is Demetrius Kapitanopoulos, 505 Mears Boulevard, Tarpon Springs, Florida.
Okay. Officer?
Yes, sir. Reference case 16-8000065, property address 505 Mears Boulevard. The property owner is listed according to the Pinellas County Property Appraiser as Green Tree Servicing LLC. That's both on the property appraiser and the tax collector's website. There's no other private owner listed. On February 27th of this year, obtained a complaint about the property. There was a trailer on the west side of the property with expired tags. There was a red Corvette parked in the front yard with expired tags and appears to be inoperative. There were some scooters, forklift, golf carts, some equipment in the front yard. And there was some trash and debris around the property. I left a 10-day courtesy notice at that time, a door hanger, basically. On March 14th, I conducted re-inspection and a notice of violation was issued. And on April 5th of this year, notice of hearing was issued as mailed first class and return receipt to the property owner listed according to the Pinellas County Property Appraiser and tax collector. We did receive a return receipt from Green Tree, and I also had contact with Demetrios.
Yep.
And I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name.
Just like it's spelled.
Demetrius. Had some phone contact with him, and I've also had some personal contact with him. April 23rd, conducted a reinspection. There was no change. We posted the property on April 29th, and the photographs I'm going to show you were dated from the 11th of May, a couple of days ago. And basically, there's still some issues going on. He was cited under 40.00 parking or storage of abandoned vehicles, basically for the red Corvette with expired tags. The outdoor storage of, as you can see in the photographs, there's a large amount of construction equipment, for lack of a better term. There's also a forklift on the property, and then just trash and debris on the property. During our conversations, the Corvette was moved out of the front yard. It was moved over into where it's at now, which is at the southern end of the driveway and kind of behind a piece of plywood. We had the discussion about that's not a fence, so he's well aware of what needs to be done, and I believe we talked about getting a fence and going through the permitting process. He can answer any questions about that if you have them, and I'll present the photographs to the board as far as that goes.
We need,
Who's here?
we need to go that way.
And as I stated, Demetrios is not listed right now as the property owner unless there's some other paperwork I'm not aware of. It's Green Tree, and I'm not sure if the lady here is from Green Tree or not.
I didn't hear what the lady said, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Officer Gaston stated that he didn't think you were the owner of the property, but it was listed under,
Green Tree.
Green Tree LLC, and then this lady here said she's representing the,
Okay. What was there a question towards me? I apologize. I'm
No.
sorry, I didn't catch it. Okay.
no.
Well, let me ask you one question. You've seen these photographs now. Do you have any objection to them being received into evidence?
Not at all, no.
Okay. Are you done?
Are you, okay, while we're reviewing the photos, do you have any questions, sir, for Officer Gaston, from what his statement was?
From what his statement was, none whatsoever. We did have,
Hang on a second. Questions? Any questions?
no.
Okay.
Okay,
Board have any?
Hmm?
Board have any questions?
yes, does the board have any questions of the city as far as, the initial response?
I do. Who's the owner? I see Mr. Demetrius is here, but is he actually as part of an owner? Otherwise, there's no testimony involved here, right?
Correct. According to the Pinellas County tax record, Green Tree Servicing out of Tempe, Arizona is the listed property owner.
Thank you.
All right, you now, sir, are allowed to make a presentation as far as your side.
Okay. As per the question from the gentleman there, I'm sorry, I can't see your name. I can't, these are for short distances, and I can't see long distances, so. I am the property owner. They did a mistake on their paperwork, because I almost lost my house, so I did a refinance type of thing, restructuring of my loan, and they never put the paperwork back in my name. So I've been there for like 17 years, owning the home. I had GMAC mortgage first, then I went to Green Tree, then I went to Ditech, so that means I have to go back and get my attorney to get them to present the paperwork back in the county or whatever and put it back in my name. So that's for your question, just so you know the situation. For the fact of the things that are scattered throughout the yards, as according to Officer Gasson, I was first cited for a trailer that was outside that didn't have tags on it, on my property, that little black trailer. I went right away and I got it tagged. I had a piece of property I sold in Clearwater. Those are all remnants from my property. I had no place to go with them, so I brought them to my house. The trailer hadn't been used for 10 years. I used it. I brought it to my house, and then when I was cited for it, I went right away and I got it tagged or registered, whatever the right term is. The Corvette in my yard was parked at my parents' house off of right around the corner. It was parked right around the corner. I lost my dad about 4 years ago. They lost their house, so I had to take the Corvette and put it somewhere. Couldn't put it in storage. Officer Gaston said if I register it, there's not a problem. I go, I don't think they're gonna give me registration if I don't insure it. So he goes, no, they do it. And well, I went over to DMV and they go, no, what are you, crazy? You can't get registration without insuring the car. I go, but it's not drivable. It's just, until I get enough money together to restore it or whatever, it ain't going anywhere. So I got a letter printed from them, and I had left it next to the notice that Officer Gasson left on my door, because I figured he'd come back from a reinspection, he'd see the letter that, they won't offer that. So then I went to the insurance company, trying to get insurance on the car, so I can register the car and get plates on it so I would come into compliance. But they needed pictures and stuff like that, because it's an antique and all this other stuff, and time was short anyways. In the meantime, I'm moving to another home. So I've got stuff that I brought over from one place to this home that's gonna be moved to another home. I had 2 boats in the yard, they're already gone. So I'm actually attempting to straighten everything out. I went to The last time I talked to Officer Gasson, he says, well, it's not, you know, if you put it behind the fence, it's not a problem. I go, cool. Can I move these fence panels, you know, from where I have it? Because the Corvette is, I think you can see it in the pictures.
Yes.
There's a fence panel behind it. I said, well, can I move it here? He goes, well, you have to get a permit. I go, okay. So I come to the city. They go, well, do you have a survey? I go, crap, really? I've had the house for 17 years. I've never had to pull a survey. I mean, I got the survey when I originally bought the house, but after that, you know, you don't need a survey unless you do anything. So that's where it is right now. I mean, we're at that position right now. And the pavers that are in the front, they're either going to become a walkway in that house, or I'm going to take it to the other house and build a walkway over there. So that's, when you find deals, sometimes you try to jump on it, and you know, you get what you can, you know. That's basically it.
Michelle, could you enter those in evidence, please? Is there any questions from the board for the violator?
I have one. Could you get this all done and fixed in 30 days?
I would need more than that because I'm in the middle of moving from one house to the other. And then I have to try to get a survey or find a survey. And as it is right now, I will have a hard time with that because it's not in my name. Because I tried to get insurance on my house just recently, and they go, well, it's not in your name. You can't even get a quote for insurance. Really? So,
how much time would you think?
I don't think more than 2 months to bring it into compliance. Because there was a bunch of other equipment there too, a scooter, couple of golf carts that I had brought from my building. I put them all in the backyard. So I mean, I moved everything as much as I could into the backyard. But the forklift that I have is going to be used to move the pavers, and I can't get it in the backyard because if I do, it gets stuck. It's too heavy because it's like sugar sand, you know, so.
Any other questions, concerns?
Concern, if you're moving to another home, is it in Tarpon Springs?
No, sir, it's in Newport Richie.
Okay, then. Thank you.
Is this commercial property?
I don't believe so. I don't believe it is.
Is it commercial?
No. So you guys have an idea where it is at. It's south side of Mears, about 3 buildings east of Sisler Field, about where Virginia and Mears intersect. It's the large house. It's got a really big tree in the front yard. That's where that helped. We all probably drive up.
But everything's gone. All the Corvette's not in the front. So if I get a fence panel behind it, you won't. It's not, you know, it's not going to be there.
Any other questions? For
Anyone?
I just wonder if 2 months, you know, I can see up close, but is it a real bad eyesore, or would giving him 2 months to take care of it
The
be?
photographs were taken from the sidewalk.
Okay.
It wasn't up on the property. That's where everybody on the sidewalk can see.
Okay.
When were these taken?
pardon me?
Well, again, the initial inspection was in February, at the end of it, and there was a reinspection in May. A notice of violation was issued. There was a response by the owner, but nothing really has been cleaned out of it in another 3 months.
Anything else? Closing arguments per se from you, City?
Demetrios he has done some work on it. The trailer was gone almost immediately. He's moved some things around. The front yard has been cleaned up to an extent. This is substantially better than it was upon the initial inspection, in his defense. But as you can see, there's still the violations that are present, primarily with the vehicles and the equipment being stored outside, and some yard debris that could be cleaned up. That's the extent of it now, but it is substantially better than it was.
All right, thank you, sir. Do you have any closing statements or
No, sir.
anything in reference
Officer
to this?
Gasson was absolutely correct. I mean, initially when I'm sorry. Sir, what is your name? I apologize again.
It's Charrier.
Mr. Charrier, when the initial code enforcement was issued, or whatever, the violation was issued, it's not what's there. It's not what you see in the pictures now. These are the most recent pictures.
The 11th,
Yeah.
yesterday.
So I mean, that back in February, it wasn't like that. I had trailer here, I had boats in the yard, I had Corvette in the front yard, I I understand it was wrong, but when you get to a point where what much can you do, So I did as much as I can as fast as I could, in the process of moving too. So,
Okay.
but I'm not leaving this house. This is going to be still my house. I'm not selling the home and moving. This is going to become a rental for me, eventually. I'm not leaving Tarpon Springs, you know, we go to St. Nick's and stuff like that.
Okay, at this point in time, then, is there any other questions? Then I'm gonna close that part, or this part of the hearing. Is there any questions or discussion amongst the board that we need to discuss?
I would kind of, I wouldn't have a problem going with a couple of months because of the ownership issue. I think, you know, that could, but I'd kind of be for giving him 2 months with a bigger fine, daily fine. That would compel him to get to work and, you know, get it settled. So that's my, and
Any other discussion?
I agree.
Could I have a motion then, please?
I'll do it. I move based on the testimony, evidence, facts presented, and law, that at the time of the alleged violations, section 440, 57, and 8-22 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Tarpon Springs were enforced, the respondent has until the 14th day of July 2016 come into compliance with the code sections, or a fine of $100 per day shall be imposed for each day thereafter the respondent remains in violation of said code section.
Do I have a second? Yes, I have a second. Could we have a vote, please?
Ms. Stubbs? Mr. Bergman?
Yes.
Mr. Charrier?
Yes.
Ms. Archer?
Yes.
Ms. Vaquesi?
Yes.
Vice Chair Sobleski?
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, all done? Great, thanks.
Yes,
Have a great day, folks.
Thanks for coming.
thank you. Well, that looks like it concludes the business for today. Before I adjourn the meeting, is there any comments from the board?
You did a great job.
It's debatable. Okay, then it is 3:10. I will call the meeting of the Code Enforcement Board for May the 12th closed. No, that's quite all right, and I'm sorry, I mean, it wasn't your fault, but I feel, no. No, oh, no, nothing serious, I hope.
And we took her.
Huh. Well, that's good.
Oh, yeah.
Well, at least he's honest.
Thank you.
The reduction of fine.
Yeah, the case is over with now. The fine reduction was denied, or actually granted.
It was granted, yeah.
Sorry.
It still hurts a lot.
Yeah,
67,000.